Hello everyone and welcome to Week 3's Millionaire Lineup Review. My name is Max Steinberg. Sorry I'm a little late for this video. It is Monday night, not Sunday night, but I'm committed to making these videos, so we're going to go. And I'm going to give you a little extra too, because not only are we going to review the Sunday Million and Millionaire Maker winning lineups, we're actually also going to look at the Blitz and the Wildcat. And I think these are valuable because, as you're going to see, the Sunday Million and Millionaire Maker winning lineups are a little strange, to say the least. And I think it would be cool just to look at, okay, here's what the high buy-in players are doing. Here's what won those type of tournaments. So first, let's look at the winner right now. Here's some of my entries. Winner Sanderson 888. And one thing that immediately jumps out at me with this lineup is, as we were talking about last week, the FanDuel winning Sunday Million lineup does again have a double stack. We have Tom Brady, Brandon Cooks, Rob Gronkowski. Not what you would think, not a terribly unchalky lineup, but it ended up not getting that much ownership. I think people got a little scared off because Houston is a good defense. Brady is priced up a ton and people wanted to pay up for other things, and that is actually something that I think I overlooked this week, is when a player is priced up this much and his matchup is not screaming, oh my god, he's going to kill it, people are probably going to avoid this just because they need to spend down so hard at other positions. And if you have a really good quarterback and some really good wide receivers, they can go off just like this. So I think this is actually a smart idea, but I do want to reiterate, I think on FanDuel, double stacking is really the optimal thing with your quarterback, because it's not PPR, and because it's not PPR, it's just half PPR, there's no bonuses. You're not really having guys sort of cannibalize off each other. So Brady throws a touchdown to Cooks, he actually throws two, he throws a touchdown to Gronk, and now you have a huge leveraged quarterback score with some really good receivers that didn't need to catch a lot of balls in order to get a lot of points. So I think that was very smart. And then he went cheap with some other players. Christian McCaffrey makes a lot of sense. I think he was a little bit chalky this week, especially in DraftKings, not as much on FanDuel just because of his PPR. And he didn't disappoint. Cam Newton seems to have some sort of shoulder injury, and he's throwing a lot shorter now, and they're really utilizing McCaffrey. I think this play makes sense. Dalvin Cook also, you know, at 6,500, I used him a little bit, and I think he's a very talented player. And, you know, getting a very talented running back at 6,500 at home, not a bad idea. Again, I am not really going to break down the merits of his point projection versus other players, but again, we're playing the Sunday Million, so it's not just like go for the chalk running backs. And that's the only thing you can do, obviously, right? You want to play a diverse array of players. You want to find the guys who are going to have that good combination of high projection and low ownership. And I think Cook definitely fits that mold, and it worked out quite well. And it's a good pivot as well, because we see Le'Veon Bell, 8,700, Jay Ajayi, 8,200. I think Kareem Hunt was 8,300. And these guys are all getting 20+% ownership. So it's a cool idea to say, okay, well, I'm going to spend up at other positions, pay down at running back, and then you end up with this very contrarian lineup with players who are not actually that contrarian. Sanu, I think, was a solid play. I'm actually surprised, again, 5% ownership. I think he was a fine play. It seems a little low to me. Steph Diggs, this is probably the one that stands out. I don't love just going with Cook and Diggs in an offense that has to have a once-in-a-lifetime game in order to, or an offense that has to have a once-in-a-lifetime, or a quarterback who has to have a once-in-a-lifetime game to have you actually have a winning lineup. And by the way, he barely won, so he really needed Diggs to go off. And I think one thing that is interesting is, and one thing that I'm honestly learning as I play football more and more, is it's really important to have talented players on your fantasy football team, just like a real football team. And with a guy like Diggs, he obviously doesn't have the best quarterback throwing to him. He doesn't have the ideal matchup, but he's a very talented receiver. And talented receivers like him, like T.Y. Hilton, like Doug Baldwin yesterday as well. These guys can find a way to have really good games in not the most ideal circumstances. And so when you have these guys who are priced down a little bit, like Diggs 6,500, I think Hilton was priced down, I think Baldwin was priced down, they become really good plays. And I think I overlooked that last week. And I think that's something to look at going forward. Lastly, Matt Prater, great kicker. One thing that's really helpful, if you have PFF, you can look at the kicker skill pretty easily, and Prater's one of the best. Playing indoors at home works well, and Kansas City Chiefs wasn't on my radar, but you can go pretty contrarian at D, and you'll see on DraftKings actually that actually really helped the guy who won the Millionaire Maker. Not who won the Millionaire Maker, who won the Blitz. But we'll get to that in a second. Millionaire Maker lineup. So one thing is, this player, check 8, did not actually stack. I think with running quarterbacks like this, especially cheap ones like Kaiser, this is okay. I think you can sort of just no stack. And because of the PPR, the quarterback and wide receivers are not as correlated. So I do think this is fine. Wide receivers, we see Steph Diggs, the aforementioned Doug Baldwin. See, I don't understand. If you're going to go with Diggs and Thielen, you may as well go with Case Keenum. So I think that was sort of wrong on his part. Gronk, great play, priced up, but he's a touchdown threat every week. Devontae Parker, good matchup for the Jets. None of this is like actually, I'm surprised the Patriots D was only 6.6% owned. I use them a lot, and they're solid. So all around, this lineup is certainly not chalky, especially with the Vikings receivers. And Jordan Howard, I just think is a bad play. He was injured coming into the week with a shoulder injury, and he played well. He's a good running back, but he's splitting time with Tariq Cohen. I think the upside probably should not be there, but especially in DraftKings. But he just sort of lucked out into a game where he's just running a ton. The Steelers defense looked terrible. He somehow got 5 receptions. I think Mike Glennon didn't throw to running backs, but I think this is, sometimes you look at this and you're like, okay, are the Millionaire Maker plays who win? Are they genius or are they stupid getting lucky? I think Jordan Howard here, stupid getting lucky. Chris Thompson, again, this is another thing where there's not that much opportunity there, but there clearly is talent. And we found out the night before that Rob Kelly was going to be out, according to Adam Schefter. So that sort of helped Chris Thompson because he's going to get a lot more opportunity. He's not going to get a lot because we knew that Samaj P. Ryan was going to be the player who's going to get that traditional first and second down role. But you have a talented player who has more opportunity, and it's a guy who can do well in PPR. He's only 4,500. I think this is a fine play. He was someone that I didn't play, but was probably on the border of someone I was possibly playing. Definitely an interesting one, and I know that some of the good players did use him. So overall, I think this lineup is interesting. My only complaint is Steph Diggs and Thielen. If you're going to stack 2 wide receivers, I just don't see why you wouldn't go with the quarterback. So kind of a weird play there. I think he did barely win, but it worked out. So congratulations on $1 million. Now onto the Blitz. So we're looking at this guy, LeBron. So the Blitz, it's the $150 tournament. You're going to have a little more traditional lineups, but also ownership is going to be jacked up a bit. And as you can see, Le'Veon Bell, 45% owned from 27% owned. So it looks like sharp players were on him. AJ Green, 40% owned, another play that sharp players really were on. And I think with these tournaments, because they are kind of top heavy, it's almost a third of the prize pool for first. You actually can go a little more daring with your contrarian play here, as just like the Sunday Million, and it will pay off. And I think this is a perfect example of how to be contrarian, is the Russell Wilson, Doug Baldwin stack. And I think the theme here is talented quarterbacks. We see this all the time. We see this all the time in the Millionaire Maker winning lineups and the Sunday Million winning lineups. Is people are taking talented quarterbacks that don't stand out with talented wide receivers, pairing them up, and they can unexpectedly kick ass some of the time. And it really, really paid off here because stack, you get Russell Wilson, 33 fantasy points, Doug Baldwin, 21, and it sets the tone for the rest of the lineup. Now, Chris Thompson was used here. I don't think he was a great FanDuel play, so I don't love that. Kareem Hunt killing it this season. You can't really make an argument why he wouldn't be in play. Antonio Brown loved this play. I think Le'Veon Bell's not really looking like himself. Antonio Brown is a huge stud, and I just don't buy the Chicago with their bracket coverage, blah, blah, blah nonsense. I think that could easily be variance, and it did show here with 10 receptions, 110 yards, and a receiving touchdown. AJ Green I loved. I used him like in all my lineups of FanDuel. I think the price was too cheap, and it was a great matchup. And I also love the opportunity here when you have a guy who's a stud wide receiver like Green. With Eifert going down, that's going to increase his production, and with such a good matchup, I just thought he was a must play. Interestingly enough, we get less than 1 point from the tight end in Jack Doyle. I love Jack Doyle. If you watch my picks video on last Thursday, and he didn't do well. T.Y. Hilton really went off. I think he was still a fine play. He probably played 100% of snaps. I could double check that, but I'm almost sure it's true. And, there's just some variance, and I think it's a fine play. It didn't work out, but he ended up winning anyway. And then, Will Lutz with the Eagles D. I like to pair the kicker in D. So I would have went with the Eagles kicker, which his name is eluding me, but this ended up working out as well. So I think this is a little more of a traditional lineup and a very good lineup for the Blitz. Now the Millionaire Maker. Pro Papa Gates won this one, and we can see here that the funny thing is with this one is his stack actually failed miserably, and he still won, which is pretty amazing, and only by a fraction of a point. But I do want to point out, he only did stack Aaron Rodgers with one receiver. Interesting. I think that, again, on DraftKings, that might really be the route to go, especially when the receivers are expensive. He ended up going with Dalvin Cook and Chris Thompson. This combo really paid off. Doug Baldwin is there. And again, we have skilled wide receivers who the matchup isn't like completely standing out, but it's really working out. Rashard Matthews, really cheap at 4,200. He had a great year last year. Obviously, Seattle, it's not a great matchup, but he's kind of priced for that matchup anyway. So I think taking a talented receiver like Rashard Matthews in a bad matchup, when he's going to play a lot of snaps, he's only 4,200. I really like this play. I think he's a great value play. Michael Thomas is kind of an obvious one. Surprising, he only gets 5% ownership. I think people went a little too crazy with the chalk this week, and it really hurt them because all these guys are getting like 4 or 5% ownership, and they're really solid plays. So a guy like Michael Thomas, it's not a play that you'd be like, oh, how did you pick this guy? Obviously, this is a good play. But he only gets 5% ownership. So it just goes to show that think about some of the guys who aren't really standing out, the guys who aren't like Kelvin Benjamin, an amazing matchup, or Christian McCaffrey or Le'Veon Bell. If you think of the guys who are just a tier below that, and people go too heavy on the chalk and you luck out with that, you can get these guys at really good ownership. AJ Green, again, great play. He's a little more priced up on DraftKings. I didn't love him as much, but he's definitely a guy who's going to get a lot of catches, 10 receptions. And then Bills D, defense at home. I think this is an interesting play. They were without Marcel Darius, so I don't love it. But, they didn't do well, but no D really did well this week, so it ended up working out. So I think the themes of this week, if I were to summarize, is you take the skilled wide receivers and the skilled quarterbacks. They just over and over again, they seem to win. And look at how people probably are going to set up their lineups with this again. A lot of people want Le'Veon Bell. A lot of people want JJ. A lot of people want Kareem Hunt. If you price down your running backs when something like that is going on, you can get a really contrarian lineup that doesn't even feel that contrarian. In this case, it's going Brady, Cooks, and Gronk, which sort of feels really chalky, but it ends up not being that chalky. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions or comments, you can tweet me at MaxJSteinberg. You can also join me on the Daily Fantasy Winners forums. And look for more videos this week. Look for another top picks video on Thursday. Might also do a pick'em video as well. So look for that. I'm sorry that my picks weren't that great last week. I had Bell, Doyle, who didn't work out, and Marvin Jones. But I promise you, next week it's going to be the week. So I hope you enjoyed this, and good night, everybody.